I would say that growing up, actually most of my childhood friends are actually Vietnamese people, um, ins- and my background is Korean actually. I feel like Vietnamese culture here is so vibrant, especially in Little Saigon and Chinatown. There's just so many concepts there that do amazing, authentic food, and that was a big part of my life growing up because all my friends are Vietnamese. They introduced me on to all their food like pho and banh mi and all the typical stuff, and it really like kind of opened up my palette of like Asian food. Before that, it was just kind of American and then Korean food. So I would say growing up here, I definitely got exposed to more Vietnamese food, and I actually grew up working in Vietnamese restaurants as well.
Wow.
So yeah.
I have much respect for like barbecue, for Cajun food, for all of that, the different ethnic groups and cuisines that we can find here in Houston. And I feel like that all plays into the menu to really showcase what Houston is all about and how diverse it is and how all of these restaurants can serve different things and make people happy in different ways. But we're so fortunate to be able to walk out of our door, leave our house, and find pretty much any type of food we'd like. I find that Houston, I'll tell you a funny story. So the reason I decided, I remember after graduating college, I was trying to make a decision between two job offers that were my top two. One was based in Austin and one was based in Houston. And it was hard for me to decide, but one weekend I had taken a trip back down to Houston and I was walking through Asia Town in Bel Air in one of the Asian grocery stores. And I remember like kind of looking around, I had vision then, and I was thinking, the Asian food scene here is so much better and I miss it. So that's actually what made my decision to move back to Houston and make my home in Houston after college. So I would say Houston is much bigger, much more diverse. It feels more metropolitan, although now I know Austin's definitely growing. To me, Austin is still like this nostalgic college experience from back in my late teens and early 20s.
What's your favorite item on the menu?
Oh, that's hard. That's like asking who your favorite child is.
Here at
Yes.
the Blind Goat, I would say the bun cot, which is these little Vietnamese crepes. They're really small, and the first time I had it was in the streets of Vietnam, and I was just like obsessed with it. I was crushing like 50 of them in one sitting because it's so good. But we imported the actual pan that we make it in from Vietnam.
Wow.
And we've had that for like 5-6 years now.
I would have to say the garlic noodles by itself. I think it's just really comfort. We do it with crawfish tails here to kind of give a homage to Gulf Coast cuisine, but the garlic noodles by themselves are just really savory. They're actually not difficult to make. You can make it vegetarian. You can actually change some things for different dietary restrictions. So that's actually a recipe that I do a lot in many cooking demos. So I would say probably the garlic noodles.
Yeah. We had those yesterday, and that was my favorite out of everything.
Yeah, they're very umami and savory
so,
and rich.
So good. Also, the tres leches was incredible.
That was actually John's idea.
Oh, wow.
He was trying to come up with some desserts that didn't involve ice cream, because ice cream, like, you have to immediately get it out onto the table or else it starts melting. So we wanted something that was had a little bit more leniency on getting it out to the table in a timely manner. So we wanted to do a cake, and we were throwing around ideas, and then he was like, why don't we do a tres leches? And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, we could easily swap out all the milks for things more Southeast Asian, like coconut milk and pandan. And he baked a bunch of iterations of them, and was pretty tasty. So that actually is a very good item on the menu as well.
When you guys are cooking for yourselves, does it tend to be like pretty evenly split? Like you guys share the cooking?
Yeah, I would say so. I think we tend to, I usually do the meal planning at home and then the grocery list, and then he'll help me out a lot in the kitchen because we do enjoy cooking together. It's just obviously like if I I'm visual impaired and I could do everything on my own, but it's a lot easier when there's someone sighted on hand to help. So and then oftentimes John likes to be creative in the kitchen, so our cooking styles are very different. I'm very precise and my personality is I like to follow routine and steps that are put in place, but John tends to like to go off all willy-nilly and be really creative and do very experimental things. So sometimes he gets into the kitchen and makes like all kinds of different things. And then I think in some ways, like that's how we complement each other in the way we work together.
The hardest part of running a restaurant. Oh man, what's not hard?
It's definitely a tough business. I think it's a marathon. I think first you need to understand your brand and really define that and what that means. And then from that, you also define your company culture. I mean, I would say like once you figure that out and then you have your menu, things are constantly changing, very fast paced in the restaurant industry. So I think you have to learn to be very agile and adapt to all things that are thrown at you. Because for example, the Blind Goat we opened in 2019 had all these accolades, and all of a sudden were hit with COVID, and that was something like none of us could foresee. So it was very difficult navigating keeping restaurants open and your team employed when sales have dropped like 70% because everyone was like quarantining and staying at home. So I think it's just learning to be very agile and always moving and pivoting quickly to adjust accordingly to what the market demands are.
So I never understood the importance of having an HR department until I owned a business, and I was like, oh my God, all these people I have to manage. I can see the value of having an HR person on your team to manage all those different personalities and interactions and all the employment issues that come up. So I would say managing people is the hardest. Definitely. I mean, in the end, it's like with restaurants, you're in the industry of hospitality. So it's not a very specific group of people we're targeting. It's really just welcoming anybody who's curious about our cuisine and what we're doing here, and to just kind of tell a story of what we envision our concept to be.
It's really hard to expand because when you expand, you have to let go of some things, like not necessarily quality, but you definitely have to have an experienced hospitality team to go and help you expand. So the Blind Goat is a lot of work in itself. We like keeping it just this one location, but our hopes are to be able to grow more locations of Stuffed Belly around Houston and maybe eventually beyond Houston.
So I know you were a business major in your undergrad, and then you went and got your MFA in creative writing.
Right.
You own a business now, so I imagine that your business background has helped you run this. And I know you've written a cookbook as well. Do you get to use like what you've learned from your creative writing degree as much as you?
Yeah, that's a funny question because John, my husband, will say the main thing I use for my creative writing degree in the restaurant is writing the menu copy. I do name all the dishes and I write the little description. For me, it's like a fun, not too serious way of getting to exercise that part of my brain. I would say just creative writing in general, I mean, it's a creative art, which seems very opposite from a business degree or a business background. So I think in terms of that, like creative arts is really about storytelling, whether you're in film, television, literature, or anything in the arts, it's storytelling. So for me, I find that being able to use that creative side to tell my story in terms of what dishes we put on the menu, what cocktails we put on the menu, how is the ambiance of the place, what is the music playing in here, because John and I curate all the music on the playlist. I think that's where the creative arts side of my brain gets to go into effect. And I'm currently working on a second cookbook, and that's right now pitching to editors and publishers. So I get to now kind of go back after having opened some restaurants, and then now they're kind of able to run without us having to be so hands-on. And now I'm able to go back to the writing side of my brain and write more about recipes and cooking, and eventually, hopefully I get to finish my memoir. I think with anything in the arts, sometimes it's very hard to constantly stay creative. My advice, no matter what creative field you're in, is to find a different creative outlet. So, maybe I was a writer before I was very much in the hospitality business. So I would find other things, whether it's like consuming films or going to see live theater. I think it's always nice to find a different creative outlet or a different hobby so that you don't burn out in your own current like creative vocation. So I think with cooking and food, for example, like, yeah, now that it's kind of my vocation, like I need to do other things that help take me away, my brain away from this, so that I'm not always feeling like the pressure of having to come up with something innovative, but take a break from it and then go in activity, and you can always bring it back to your work.
Yeah, I think that comes with like any entrepreneur. Once you kind of work for yourself, it's really hard to turn it off, because it's what you do. As soon as you wake up, you're working. As soon as you get home, you're pretty much constantly thinking about the business. So, early on when we first started, it was just constant conversation, whether we're here or at home with Christina and I, and it got to a point where we're like, okay, we got to stop freaking talking about work when we're at home, and especially like closer to bedtime. It's just, if something stressful was happening in the business and you don't want to bring it up right before you want to go to sleep. So we definitely had to, compartmentalize our day and say, hey, once we get to our house and it's like closer to sleeping time, we should not talk about these things.
I think winning MasterChef, it gave you this incredible title, but I feel like it also comes with a lot of expectation. Have you found that people expect more from you because of
yes, 100%. I would say I had imposter syndrome coming out of MasterChef for several years. And I always say, like, the higher you climb, like, or the higher the pedestal that people put you on top of, then the greater the fall, the potential fall. So there was a lot of pressure, and there still is, but I've learned to kind of tune out that noise, and for my own mental health. Like, I can't please everybody, and there will always be haters online. Like, there's, to this day, some people still think I'm faking my vision impairment, or I cheated my way through MasterChef, or my food isn't that great, or whatnot. So I think it's something that comes with maturity and experience, to learn how to sift through all of that noise and like take the constructive feedback or criticism that some people give you that you find valuable, and always use that to make your craft stronger and better. But then a lot of it is just noise that really doesn't help you or make do any service for you. So it is really learning to discern between what is helpful and what is not, which a lot of it is not. So I think really, yeah, I mean, we experience it as a restaurant. Negative reviews online affect a business. I don't think people realize like how much that affects a business in a negative way, especially like local independent restaurants and mom and pop shops that are not like large chains that have corporate money. So yeah, that's something I think I face a lot after MasterChef and after opening the restaurants.
Are you still in contact with them? Do they still?
Well, Graham's not on the show anymore, so we maybe just keep in touch online. But I see Joe and Gordon probably at least every other year, because I do go back a lot to film guest appearances on MasterChef and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, other than like seeing them in person, it's not like I have like a bat line, like a direct connection to Gordon. But yeah, it is always fun to reconnect with the judges, especially Gordon, because he's my favorite. And now that I'm not under his tutelage per se and like trying to win his competition, like I can bust his balls a little bit more, and it's fun. People always ask me, like, does he do that for camera? Like, does he act the way he does so that because he's on television? And I really don't think it is. I think it's the other way around. His personality is just naturally like that, so that makes him really good for television, which is why he's been so successful on TV.
Yeah. What has been your favorite part of your journey so far?
I think my favorite part is actually getting to meet people who watch the show, like in this instance, in person, and realize that I've somehow touched them in a positive way. I think a lot of times, like, growing a follower base on social media, or people talking to you digitally or online, that's really cool. But that's kind of one thing, like, we disassociate from people that we quote unquote meet online. But when I get to meet people in person at speaking engagements, or when I go do events at colleges and universities, which college students are always my favorite because they always ask the best questions in Q&A sessions. But I think meeting people, getting to connect with them on a personal level, shake their hand, take pictures with them, and realizing the positive difference I've been able to make in their lives, I think that's like the most amazing part.
I think soon we're gonna head over to the Stuffed Belly. Do you have any recommendations?
Oh, I mean, that menu is even smaller and tighter than the menu at the Blind Goat, so I would say everything is good there. I would say try right now our special that we're running during the Lent season, which is our fish and chips. So I grew up with my mom forcing me to eat a lot of McDonald's Filet-O-Fish. And I, you know, in some ways I wanted to do kind of a tribute to the sandwich my mom always made me eat, but make it much better than that version. So that one is really good and a very popular special that every time we bring it back, it does really well. Our belly burger is, you know, our 2 all beef patties that are done in a smash burger style, very simple American cheese, our stuffed sauce on a potato roll. That's a really simple one that a lot of, I would say is kind of our #1 seller. If you want to do kind of a Texas flip on that, we do have the belly melt, which is like our version of a patty melt. So there's an extra slice of provolone cheese in addition with the American cheese, and it's done on Texas toast. Yeah, I would say maybe some of those, but I feel like, you know, whatever is your calling today to try there, you can't go wrong.
I'm not gonna lie, the Filet-O-Fish is like my secret, what's it called? Like, yeah, my guilty pleasure. I kind of like it. So I think I'm gonna try that
Yeah,
one.
you should definitely try that because I guarantee yours is better.
Okay.
Sorry,
no,
McDonald's.
No, I believe it.